Classrooms Foundation is dedicating a building along with Under Armour and a bunch of other members here earlier in the week. And I think Ray Lewis is involved. No one's done more to Living Classrooms than my guy Brian Billick, our head coach here on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation, and of course Super Bowl 35 champion. Coach, this coaching thing, it blows the way of the wind, right? I mean, the Ravens last week, 2-game winning streak. They go down to Dallas. Tough game on Sunday, right? And I think we can see this evolving Dallas Cowboys cast being, highlighted in January. They have a real chance to win a Super Bowl here with this rookie quarterback.
Well, they do, because you saw just how physical they are and how balanced they are. The Ravens obviously did a great job in the first half doing what you have to do. Can you hold up and stop the running game of the Dallas Cowboys? And the mentality in Dean Pease, you can see the way they crowd the line of scrimmage, and what they did was to say, okay, we're not going to let you run the ball. As good as you are with that offensive line, as good as you are with Ezekiel Elliott, we're not going to let you run the ball. You're going to have to beat us throwing the ball. And as we're finding with Dak Prescott, he went, okay, I can do that, and went out and just had a brilliant game. And then once they were able to do that, you saw what the Cowboys do to everybody. They just wear you down. That offensive line is for real. And as good as the Ravens played, to be able to hold up to that bludgeoning the entire game, and in the second half, they just took over, which is what they have been doing.
I know you had to play with some secondaries that were banged up, and you lose a key guy in a big game. But the Ravens certainly didn't have any answer for Dez Bryant. They didn't have a player of that caliber on the field. And the loss of Jimmy Smith, and we've seen this throughout the year, whether it was losing Yanda, Mosley, Suggs, Ronnie Stanley, all for Steve Smith for various points of time. When you lose your best players, that's not a position. I mean, you coined the phrase "next man up." Next man up. That all sounds good until you actually have to go out there and guard one of the 5 best in the world to do this.
Yeah, and I remember watching the game, and because of what they were having to do to stop the running game, which was brilliant. I mean, you saw them in that first half just have to punt after punt after punt. They couldn't get anything going. They did a great job defensively. I'm talking about the Ravens. But then once you came out in that second half, or really at the end of the second quarter, with those drives, I mean, you're looking. It was unbelievable to look at the 4 drives. So think about this now, that the 4 drives gobbled up the entire game to the point where, I mean, that last one was, for the field goal, was 26 plays? Are you kidding me? I don't know that I've ever seen that before. And because then it comes down to that matchup. So I remember watching the game and seeing what Coach Pease was going to do, which he had to do to stop the run, and looked out and just kept thinking, they just ought to go after Dez every play. Because he was getting one-on-one matchups, and they just didn't have the players on the field with Jimmy Smith out to compete.
Well, and then there's rushing the quarterback and getting to him, and they didn't make him work hard enough, I didn't think. And certainly to get off his spot, the pass rush misses something at this point. And obviously Suggs is getting closer to the end than the beginning. Dumerville hasn't gotten onto the field. Without a pass rush, you really do open yourself up to some target practice here, especially with Jimmy Smith not being back there.
Well, and obviously Terrell's playing with one arm literally tied behind his back, so to speak, and that is tough. And even though they've got the big man in the middle, which was going to be a big part of it, you could see, and we've talked about it, the Ravens have played good total team defense because they don't have any, they don't have any great players at each level like we're used to seeing in Baltimore. So you've got to do it with numbers. You got to do it with scheme, and Dean Pease did a good job with it. But when you do scheme it up that way, then you're going to create those one-on-ones on the outside, and it's hard to hold up against a talented team like Dallas that can hurt you both ways.
Coach, you spent your whole head coaching career in the NFL looking for a Dak Prescott, right? And, 4th-round pick. What do you see from him 10 weeks into this thing that leads you to believe he's going to be doing this for the next 10 years? And maybe not that Colin Kaepernick that's a little bit of a flash, something that is substantial for that organization. I was with Gil Brandt, your dear friend. I had a meal with him up in the upstairs, and, he said he's never really seen anything like it because the job gets bigger every year. It's bigger now than it was in the era of Staubach for a rookie quarterback to come in there and be able to play with this kind of poise and make it look kind of effortless at this point 10 weeks into it.
Yeah, Dak Prescott got drafted when he was supposed to get drafted. The Cowboys passed on him on 3 rounds too now. It's kind of like Tom Brady was talking about. Remember, the New England Patriots passed 5 times as well. And when you think about it, and I saw it's kind of a crummy thing to say, but that the Cleveland Browns passed on Dak Prescott 8 times and took 8 players in front of Dak Prescott, and what a difference that would make. And he was evaluated because what you saw at Mississippi State was athletic quarterback, some parallels to Russell Wilson. Size was a concern. Accurate, as a style of play, you really didn't have this guy going to hold up to a 55 in the NFL in the pocket. Well, actually turns out pretty well. So, yeah, everybody had it the same way. So Dallas is the beneficiary of it. They went out trying to figure out who they would play quarterback got hurt because they saw what happened last year. So they're on top of the curve. They've got a great young quarterback. He's just calm. His fundamentals are solid. Forget what he can do outside the pocket, which is great. He can add some balance. He's got a great offensive line. He's got Ezekiel Elliott. So those are some advantages as well.
And classrooms.org. Coach, for the Ravens and picking up the pieces here, I don't know that I expected them to win. I thought they could win in Dallas, but now still in the driver's seat, still with these 6 games. I mean, all of the, coaching points were there for the Eric Weddles and the Joe Flaccos and the Brandon Williams who sat in the locker room and said, look, it's a 6-game season. We're very much in this. We control our own thing. And here come the Cincinnati Bengals where Marvin's in trouble. The organization's in trouble. It's a lost season. And now they lose A.J. Green and perhaps Gio Bernard as well this week. And coming into Baltimore, you talk about our injury issues. The Bengals better not come in here and beat the Ravens on Sunday, given their gimpy status, right?
Yeah, I mean, and just by the fact that Baltimore, obviously it's going to come down to they and Pittsburgh. You're not going to get a wild card team out of the AFC North. I doubt it. Not particularly the way the West is playing. And plus you got the Miami Dolphins, a surging Miami Dolphin team, which is what's up next for the Ravens. So this is going to be, you got to take care of the Bengals at home. You got to beat Miami at home because that head-to-head could be huge. And then, okay, we got to put our big boy pants on because you got to go to New England. You got to play Philadelphia, who's still in the middle of it for the NFC East, and then you're on the road at Pittsburgh, and then see what happens at Cincinnati. So, yeah, this is going to be daunting for the Ravens. It's going to be laid out there for them, and you can see where their confidence will come from because they can very much be in control of their future. They're not at that point where somebody else has to lose for them. They can control their future, and that always is a lot better than hoping. You got a few teams here that, okay, maybe we can get to 9 wins. That's going to be tough enough for us, but we have to have team A, B, and C lose a whole bunch of games.
Coach, we both share an affinity for Marvin Lewis and what they're going through there with 1 year left on his deal. And, I mean, it feels like sort of the end of this second act. I mean, the first act was the Carson Palmer era back when you were still coaching with the Ravens. And now this Andy Dalton thing. It feels like that they have some tired personnel there. And the offseason losses now combined with some guys getting older and a lot of well-paid guys. But Marvin did everything there to follow that program and keep it together. And I look back on those seasons, 12 wins, 11 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins, 9 wins. I mean, that's not easy to do, as you know, but it feels like there's going to be a lot of noise around Cincinnati the next 6 weeks, right?
Well, anytime you get past that 10-year mark, and you're seeing it with guys like Mike McCarthy, even a Mike Tomlin, although Pittsburgh does not do that. In terms of changing its coaches. Marvin got good at the right time. In year 10, he won 10 wins, and then the next 4 years rolled off double-digit wins. And Cincinnati knows what it is to not have a good coach, and they the management knows Marvin's a good coach and what he's done for that organization. But at some point, change is inevitable at some point. And whether they're going to choose to do that, as I say many times, they can get a different coach than Marvin Lewis. They're not going to get a better coach than Marvin Lewis, but they can get a different one. And they know what it is to not have a good coach, and that's got to be in the back of my mind about, okay, are we going to get the right guy if indeed we have to make a change?
But it also feels like in the case of the Bengals, a lot of the personnel is going to have to change there too.
Yeah, they're at a sea change in that way. Obviously Andy Dalton will continue to get some heat. Can he be that guy because of the playoff losses? Defensively, and again, they've lost some good coaches, and to look at it from that standpoint. But like everybody, it's hard to keep everybody. And the dominant, really good defenses they had, people chipped away at. They chipped away at that receiving core. So yeah, that is part of it. You know, when ownership looks at this, whether they want to keep Marvin or not, they, you know, when you look at it and say, you look in Green Bay, okay, we've got to make some major changes. We're okay at quarterback. All right, that's always the death knell. When you got to make a change at quarterback, then we should probably go ahead and change the coach as well. Well, what is Cincinnati thinking at the quarterback position? If not, then we've got to change our profile. We got to change our trajectory of where we are right now. And if we're going to do that, then they start thinking, okay, well maybe we ought to do that with the coach.
Coach, Seattle Seahawks have moved back into this conversation. I mean, it feels like along with Dallas, there's a collision course going on here as we get up on Thanksgiving. That these are the two best teams in the NFC. Seattle's pretty good, and the offense is getting better. I mean, we talked about that back in September and early October. Could the offense get better? It looks like it is.
Yeah, particularly with getting Prosite, although he got hurt again. We'll see how long he's out. And Rollins back in the running game. Not a great running game, you know, not what we're used to seeing. It's a different Seattle team. The defense is just looking physically dominant again. Cam Chancellor, and that's without Michael Bennett. They look like the real deal again defensively. Russell Wilson has shown, okay, I can be that 500-plus throw quarterback. I haven't had to do it up to now because we ran the ball and played great defense. So if I've got to be that guy, I can be that guy, and he's shown to be that brilliantly. If they can start to get a little bit of a running game back, and they ran a little bit better, obviously, against Philadelphia, who's a good team, then, you're absolutely right. These two teams, I don't see anything else in the NFC, and it can happen. There's some good teams, but these teams seem on a collision course because they're clearly the most physically dominant team, and what a matchup that will be with the Dallas Cowboys going against the physical Seattle Seahawks. And Dallas's defense is better. You know, they've got their own injuries as well. That was the tough part for Baltimore, to not be able to take advantage of that banged-up secondary of the Dallas Cowboys, but they didn't get a chance because the offense just grinded the ball out in that second half in particular. These two teams clearly look like they're on that collision course, and we've seen this in Seattle before, where last year they got good from the middle of the season on. They got healthy. They got Cam Chancellor back. This is going to be a good football team.
NFC East is more powerful than we thought, right? I mean, now that we're getting toward the end of the year, the Giants just keep winning. The Redskins just keep winning. Now they're going to see the Cowboys on Thursday, and they'll have their hands full there as well down in Dallas. But they're better football teams than we believe them to be in the offseason, all of them.
Yeah, who would have said that we're going to see two wildcard teams come out of the NFC East? And that likely is, we thought it would come out of the NFC West. Of any place, and maybe out of the North, and obviously that's fallen apart. But they look, and they're doing it. The flip side, they're it's on the offensive side, isn't it? The Giants with Eli Manning and what Kirk Cousins is doing down in Washington, even Philadelphia with the rookie Wentz. New York's playing better defense, better than they did last year. So they're a very legitimate 7-3. And so Washington, Kirk Cousins is playing extremely well. They even got Vernon Davis playing well with Jordan Reed and obviously the Crowley kid, and then Deshaun Jackson on the outside. Their defense is playing okay. And so, the NFC East, really it looks like we're going to have three teams in the playoffs from the NFC East.
All right, last thing for you. You never coached Joe Flacco. He came right after you left. You coached Ray Lewis for a long time. I don't know what possesses Ray Lewis to say such a thing, and I don't, blind loyalty will get you killed and all of that stuff, but I found it to be kind of unnecessary, and certainly the Ravens locker room felt that way. I think the organization felt that way. Now, you've been involved in this tub of butter at different points. What do you have to say about Ray Lewis saying that Joe Flacco doesn't have passion?
Well, it's unfortunate, and keep in mind, and I'm part of the business, you're part of the business, there's a lot you talk about, and you make an observation and you don't try not to make it personal. When you look at the reference frame compared to Ray Lewis, pretty much the whole league doesn't have passion, because we know that's, no one sees the game through quite the same eyes that Ray Lewis does. So in reference to that, you can say, okay, well, that's fair.
You couldn't have 53 Rays, though, could you?
Yeah, no, that would you'd be great, but boy, it would wear you out. But Joe is like, you see a number of quarterbacks. I had Warren Moon, Hall of Famer, great. What a joy it was to coach Warren for a little bit, and Warren, who was a very cerebral, measured, kept his emotions in check. Was a guy that sometimes people mistook for a lack of competitiveness, because you didn't see that wild-eyed, fiery, up and down the sideline, chewing on guys and this, that, and the other, because it just wasn't his style. It would have been a false chatter in that way. And so, and even I was fortunate to even, although early in his career, a guy like Joe Montana, who again was kind of subdued, very, fun-loving smile and loved to compete. You could see that. And Joe loves to compete. I was around, I remember the criticism when I got to be around Tony Dungy for a number of years in Minnesota, and when he went on to obviously a Hall of Fame career as a coach. Some people looked at Tony Dungy and said, well, you know what, he's not really a competitive guy. He's not a fiery guy. Tony Dungy's very much a competitor. He just has a different demeanor about it. So you've got to see it. Let's remember Jonathan Ogden. Jonathan was not a guy, a screamer, yeller, that type of a guy, had a different approach to it. So sometimes you have to recognize that it's going to look different from the quarterback position. Some people, that's hard for them to get used to, and they may look at it that way. Again, do I think the comment was ill-advised and probably not fair? Probably not. But from Ray's perspective, again, as Ray probably would say, I'm just speaking from the heart, so to speak. Okay, and certainly you can understand where Joe and the rest of the organization didn't feel real good about it and was like, well, why? We're down now? How competitive was he when we went to the Super Bowl?
Well, I would also say for a guy like you that's worked with dozens of professional quarterbacks, black, white, tall, short, young, old, left-handed, right-handed, I mean, you've seen it all. Is there some ideal for you as far as calmness? It would seem to me I always like the chances of the calm guy more than Phillip Rivers, let's say, who does feel to be, and you see the passion, you see the energy, but you also see the scolding. I mean, Peyton Manning would scold his players, publicly in the middle of somebody cut the wrong way. Some fans think that's a good thing. Maybe for some wide receivers that's a good thing. Maybe for some of them it's a bad thing. I guess it's all personality-based. But I would say from a coaching perspective, from you having confidence, calm is good if you're a quarterback, from what I can tell.
Yeah, to a degree. Sometimes it can be misplaced. Rookies we just talked about a calm Dak Prescott, and how impressive that was. You like calm to a degree. I always kind of joke with the rookies. I also want to know that calm's fine, but I also want to know that you're smart enough to be afraid. Show me that you know how that you recognize what it is you're seeing here. And you can take calm too far sometimes. Your players need to see your passion that's true to your personality. You talked about Peyton Manning. Well, his counterpart, Eli Manning, who has a totally different approach to it. But you talk to the players, the Giants, Sean O'Hara, my partner on Game Day First from the NFL Network, longtime New York Giant, and was the center for Eli Manning, will tell you Eli's very competitive, will call players out, very much a leader. But you just don't see that. He's going to do it in a much more, quiet and, hey, you and I will talk. I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to talk to the media about it. I'm not going to call you out in front of anybody, but you and I are going to sit and kind of get this thing sorted out. That's really the kind of leadership that you want. And it goes the other way. If you have a guy that is the flamboyant and the screamer and the yellow and the histrionics, but knows how to deal with the players afterwards, to then go up and throw the warm, fuzzy arm around them and in a more calm atmosphere go, look, you know what I'm saying here. Well, players will forgive that too. But you got to follow it up as well. So the leadership comes in a lot of different forms.
That's why we write books about leadership, right? Everybody's got a different philosophy on what it is, right?
And you got to find what's right for you, whether it's a coach or a quarterback, and the coach has to recognize that as well. You got to be very careful. Remember, it was Andy Dalton a couple of years ago where they said, and then Marvin actually had to go to Andy Dalton and say, hey, you got to be a little more demanding. You got to hold these players a little more to accountability. And it's got to be, that's one of those things where they either have or they don't. I don't know that you can really nurture it or build it in somebody if it's not inherent to their personality.
Now, isn't this the time of the year when you love not being a coach, right? Where you get to hang out Thanksgiving with the family and doing all that stuff that you never really had the chance to sit around and enjoy when you were coaching, right?
Oh, there's no question about it. Yeah, I'm going to spend Thanksgiving with my grandsons and my daughter and get to go see my future son-in-law play a little basketball with the Pistons. And, it's a great time. Plus, it's a time, we're coming up on the time of year, you hear the reports that Charlie Strong may be out at Texas. And so we're going to start seeing the coaching carousel and the college game come up, and then we're going to start hearing rumors about the NFL and what's going to happen. That's a tough time. That's a time when you look at it and go, yeah, I'm not a part of that anymore, because it is a tough time. It's tough on the coaches. It's tough on the family. Sometimes it's not fair. There are circumstances sometimes that sometimes the change just needs to be made. That's hard to get your head around sometimes when you're a coach. You look at a Mike McCarthy who's had double-digit wins for all but one of the last 8 years, and to have to sit there and listen to well, maybe there just needs to be a change for change's sake. That's hard. And so from that standpoint, the career coach in me begins to have some empathy for some of these coaches and what they're going through right now.
Well, there's a lot of places where things haven't gone as well as they wanted. I mean, Carolina, New Orleans for sure, Chicago Bears, obviously the Jaguars, and you saw Gus Bradley lose his mind when a kid jumps off sides at the end and cost him a game. I mean, Hugh Jackson hasn't won a game and doesn't look like they're going to win a game. The Chargers and the Raiders might be packing up shop and, moving to Las Vegas and moving to Bemidji, during the offseason. So there's all sorts of things happening out there, right?
Yeah, and it's that time of year, and which is fine. That's great. It's a lot to talk about, and it's exciting, and we're going to see some good football coming up as well. But during the holidays, there's always, at least from a coaching standpoint, there's always that additional emotion. And it's hard for me because part of my job now, as I go forward for the NFL Network and the radio syndication that I do, people ask questions about that. And you want to be respectful of it, but you also have to make an observation that says, well, here's kind of what I see. And that's tough. That's a part of it that's hard for me, because I recognize, the old idea that nothing personal, just business. Yeah, it still sucks.
Well, I got nothing personal, just business on Thursday night. I mean, when the Steelers and the Colts get together, that's tough for me, Coach. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
which way you pull, huh?
Yeah, and I got the Redskins in the afternoon against the Cowboys. There's no good guys there, but we'll have some turkey, some pumpkin pie, and some fun, and certainly some football. It's always great catching up with you, Coach. We're following you out on Twitter, and appreciate all you do for us here.
Sounds good, man.
You got it. Head Coach Brian Billick joining us here on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation. They had a big week there in dedicating a new center along with Under Armour earlier in the week. You'll definitely want to check that out at livingclassrooms.org. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear anywhere you are. Our morning newspaper ships to you at 7 a.m. each and every morning to your email inbox, courtesy of Planet Fitness and planetfitness.com. It's still $10 a month to get in shape there. And last but never least, breaking news. It happens first right here on the WNST text service in the palm of your hand. It is free, easy to sign up at WNST.net, and all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. We're at Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills every Monday night, getting it done out there with the best seat in the house, all brought to you by Fully Loaded Transportation. We bring the limo out to you, get you a $100 gift card, and have dinner there. All you have to do is be on the premise during halftime at Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills. We also have the Blazing Wing Eating Challenge at halftime. That's always a lot of fun as well. Nasty at WNST.net. That's my only email address. You can reach me there. I am a very available individual. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And a reminder, Zach Orr, Ravens linebacker, going to be joining us on Tuesday night at Buffalo Wild Wings in Bel Air at the festival. So Harford County, come on out. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. And for There Goes My Hero, eating some wings and talking football with Zach Orr. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.